In this video, I will discuss the connection between eugenics, Oliver Wendell Holmes, William Howard Taft, and the secret society structures that exist in America that all go back to eugenics. Before I even read this book, I had made claims that this book definitively confirmed. I said that Masonry and eugenics are inseparable. That is correct. I said that the secret societies in Yale are working together to bring in a eugenics agenda and to kill us with abortion and chemicals and psychiatry. That is also correct. I said that the Jews and the whites are working together as an unholy alliance of vested interest. That is also correct. I said the people in charge are Nazi sympathizers. That is also correct. So I am going to eviscerate Skull and Bones like a chicken, like Chicken Little. Before I am done, they will have deference to my wishes. First, I will talk about infants being led to their death, which is what you should see on the screen right now. I will talk about Holmes' father and the importance of bloodlines. Laughlin, his wife Pansy, because they're pansies, which also I was right about. Speaking of things I was right about, they're weaklings, they're pansies. I've seen their pictures. I don't want to take too much from the book, but I assure you these eugenicists are weaklings, they're cowards, and they're impudent fools. I will talk about how the mental health experts sided with them on record initially, and then they began to waver, but it was too late. The decision had been made in 1927 with Buck versus Bell, with William Howard Taft as the Chief Justice presiding. I will talk about the 12 Tables of Rome and Plato's Republic being an integral part of Western society or Western civilization, and even the lawyer for Carrie Buck cited that for some reason as a defense. Again, he was your equivalent to a public pretender, one could argue, because he sabotaged her case on record. And Adam Cohen, the Harvard lawyer, the guy who graduated from Harvard Law, and the New York Times writer, and I think Times Magazine, he came to the same conclusion. I will talk about the difference between social and medical. Again, another thing I was right about. I said these social norms are set by people in Ivy League schools, from Ivy League schools. And these, corrupt politicians like Hillary Clinton. And of course, I will talk about William Howard Taft. Let me start off by saying William Howard Taft, his father, founded Skull and Bones. And William Howard Taft, just like the president before him, Theodore Roosevelt, on record, was a eugenicist. So on record, a eugenicist founded Skull and Bones, where William Howard Taft attended and most certainly was a member as well. There's no way around that. A eugenicist and his son are probably the two most important members of Skull and Bones historically. And Skull and Bones was founded by a eugenicist. 3 guesses what the purpose of this privileged school that was founded by a eugenicist was. Now remember, Scroll and Key, the Berzelius Society. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that I haven't just brought credence to my argument, I have definitively proven it. And of course, Bush and Kerry and the 8-to-1 ruling in favor of Bell and the legalization of sterilization in 1927 by liberal and Republican justices also cements that point. Now, I would like to start off, excuse the noises, I'm going to write down things, to make for my editing. Infants to their death. I also claimed that abortion was part of the eugenics agenda. Absolutely. This is what Oliver Wendell Holmes, arguably the most respected justice in American history, is what he said. And many eugenicists were appalled by this idea. But the women's rights movement, known to you as feminism, obviously sided with the rich eugenicists such as the Boston Brahmins, that historically were privileged classed people who argued that the aristocracy should do what they want and that society and the laws therein should favor the ruling class to favor the strong over the weak for the betterment of society and to create a master race of people, which, when you do the reading and you do your due diligence, was obviously a white race at this point. And we'll get into that in a moment. You see, Holmes' father stressed the importance of bloodlines. And of course, that goes back to the Illuminati bloodlines. It is impossible for one to separate bloodlines from eugenics on record. It is impossible for one to think that the Illuminati and the bloodlines are some conspiracy theory. This is on record. These are the privileged class people. They believe they are enlightened because of their Ivy League school education for them, for most of them, and that they deserve to rule over you and that they have superior bloodlines. This is exactly what the quote-unquote conspiracy theorists have claimed about the Illuminati. And of course, those of you who do the research, you know the Illuminati actually existed, Weishaupt in Germany, and that's not a coincidence that Hitler was from ding, 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 Germany. And he was about ding, 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 eugenics, social Darwinism, and scientific racism. Moving on. Harry Laughlin had a wife named Pansy. Now, I told you that they're a bunch of sissies from Ivy League schools, a bunch of nerds, a bunch of effeminate cowards. They want to downplay the importance of being a warrior. This is true. However, it should be noted that Holmes actually fought for the Union, and he said that wars have a negative effect on eugenics because they eliminate the strong and the adventurous and they leave the cowards behind. It is very obvious, and I'm sure I'm going to read books that will contribute to this argument, this truth rather, that eugenicists since then have decided that wars are actually good to get rid of the rebellious and strong members of society who they see as coming from inferior stock. That if you don't agree with the super rich Ivy League ninnies and the privileged class, that you're a threat. And if you're strong and adventurous, you're a bigger threat. Pansies. Moving on. The Jews and the Italians in the official eugenics report were some of the main immigrants they wanted to screen out of the white gene pool while they segregate blacks from whites. That's on record. There's no way around that. Moving on. The mental health experts on record were the main people pushing for eugenics. So for mental health to pretend that they do not need to prove definitively to us beyond any doubt, that they're not doing eugenics, when historically they were the main people pushing the eugenics program, Southard, E.E. Southard, and Dr. Pretty Evil. All jokes aside, this is very, very serious. Moving on, and this part brings tears to my eyes, damn it. And there's all this stuff, but right now, it is very sad. Because I've been telling you for a long time that the Pythagoreans and Masonry Masons have come out themselves and said that their society is based on the Pythagoreans. And they talk about Greco-Roman secret societies, Orpheus, Demeter, Diana. Even in my book by Robert Hewitt Brown, 32-degree Mason, I believe it's called Stellar Theology and Masonic Astronomy. Okay? He talks about the Greek and Roman mysteries. So this is not something that, this is something that Masons have talked about themselves. And what do you have in, you see the gay agenda, you see the homosexual history of Greece and how, men used to court little boys and be their mentors and their tutors. And then, they would quit their relationship when the boy got older. So it was a pedophile, homosexual kind of relationship. And we see pedophilia and homosexuality on the rise. Now, also, the 12 Tables of Rome and Plato's Republic argue for eugenics. They demand eugenics. And even Whitehead, who is defending the victim of eugenics, Carrie Buck, argued in a way that showed that eugenics was an integral part of Western civilization. Something else I'm correct about, that Western culture is demonic. Not white people, but their culture of materialism, eugenics, conformity, consumerism, selfishness, shallowness, cowardice, evilness, and lies. But again, moving on. I want to make this brief. I don't want to lose any of you. Stay with me now. Stay with me. Remember I said that social norms, people are drugged based on what is socially normative, and what is socially normative is quite detestable and sacrilegious and anti-Christian. It goes back to the scriptures I always quote for you. In John, in Matthew, John 15:18, Matthew 10:22. Look them up, okay? So the difference between social and medical, it's the same thing. We're drugging people based on what is socially normative, not any factual medical problem. There's no valid medical test, no valid diagnostic test. It is all based on what is socially normative. For the same reason they said that feeble-mindedness was a social term, not a medical one. And the Binet-Simon test was an invalid intelligence test, just like the IQ test. And then, of course, William Howard Taft, a president and a former president and a former Chief Justice whose dad founded Skull and Bones. So you have these extremely important people when it comes to American history. And their bloodlines are still around, and the old money is still around, the Rockefellers, and countless more. I mean, there's a lot of these guys that no one talks about, and I have so much on my plate, or I would go out of my way to stress who these individuals are. But it's more important that you see what they're doing, and that you stand up against the ideas that they're doing, and you push for legislation that will take away money and power from these people who are oppressing you, and you're not fooled by the three parties in America, the liberals, the libertarians, and the Republicans. They historically ruled in favor of eugenics, and then after World War II, they ruled in favor of covert eugenics. Now ask yourself, if I've been right about all my key points, which I have, and the more I read, the more evidence I present to you, it becomes ridiculously proven. I am beating a dead horse here for fucking 7 years. I've been right from the start. The Western twist is quite sinful and deadly. I apologize for the noise. My mom is vacuuming. We'll leave it there. Thank you.